Alright, hey friends, welcome to Classics in Color, your weekly dive into some of the ancient world's wackiest facts. I'm Mark Graves, and today we'll be talking about some ancient Greek and Roman versions of the boogeyman. So the source for this video is from a chapter called Defining the Dreadful: Remarks on the Greek Child-Killing Demon by Sarah Johnston, and that chapter is from a book called From Ancient Magic and Ritual Power. Great read if you ever have some spare time. So let's start us off by looking at a little passage from Theocritus's Idyll number 15. So in this passage, he's describing a bunch of women who are leaving their children at home so they can go to a women's festival, the Festival of Adonis. And as they're saying goodbye to these children and trying to leave them behind, the children are kind of throwing a fuss, they're crying, they're complaining that mommy's leaving. Pretty common scene. And one of these women is getting a little fed up with this behavior, and she threatens the child. Basically, she says, "I will not take you with me, child. Mormo, the horse, bites." So it seems like she's saying something along the lines of, shut up or the boogeyman is going to get you. So who is this Mormo? So there are several different references to several different monsters that are supposed to haunt children. That's just kind of scattered throughout, sprinkled into Greek literature. The interesting thing is that all of these monsters share a few things in common. One of those is that they're almost always hybrids. So it's never just a wolf. It's always a wolf and a man, or a wolf and some other animal that's just been unholy mashed together. This, we think, was particularly unsettling to them for a couple reasons. One, that if you combine a couple different animals, then you get the strengths or the threats of multiple animals. And the other one is that it defies categories. You can't define what the threat or the fear is, so it makes you more unsettled. It's kind of similar to the uncanny valley in that way. Another thing that they all have in common is that they have either engaged in the past or are still currently engaging in things that the Greeks considered taboo, so stuff like incest or cannibalization. And then lastly, most of them are derived from the spirits of souls that are considered particularly restless. So some souls that were considered really restless and likely to come back as ghosts or to transform into monsters were actually the spirits of virgins who died, specifically virgin girls. For some reason in the Greek mind, girls who died before they were married, before they had sex and had children, who just didn't get to achieve that in their life, were considered to be particularly unfulfilled, I guess, and just really likely to come back and haunt everyone and take out that incompleteness on everybody else. Unfortunately, the sexy monster is not really a thing in the ancient world as far as I can tell. Fortunately, most monsters are considered to be absolutely hideous, disgusting, they're dirty, they smell terrible. Some things you'll see people say about them is that they're comfortable farting in public, of all things. You'll often see them described as being sexually deviant or overly lustful, and that lust will manifest itself in their appearance in various ways. So they might have enlarged genitals. Sometimes they're described as hermaphroditic, unfortunately. Sometimes they're described as having enormous breasts. There's not really another way to put that. Apparently just really big, gross breasts that were disgusting and off-putting. Some of the animal combos also connect to this. Some monsters are part wolf, part owl, things that are scary, but then sometimes you'll see monsters that are part horse or part donkey, which you might think is kind of weird because donkeys aren't that scary, but donkeys in the ancient world are considered to be really lustful animals, like really bad. So that's where that connection is coming in, that these monsters are part donkey, this horribly lustful animal, I guess. And then a few monsters take it even a step further in that they don't have a defined form. They're constantly amorphous. So you can't even say, well, at least they're just these three animals. They're everything all at once, or they have the potential to be everything all at once. And I can see why that would get kind of unsettling. So those are some of the things that these horrible monsters have in common, other than the fact that they all prey on and are blamed for the otherwise unexplained deaths of pregnant women, fetuses, and children. So some of their names are Mormo, Lamia, Gello, Ampusa, and Strix. And sometimes the Strix comes in plural. There are multiple of them, and then they're called the three gays. Let's look at some quotes about these ladies. We'll start with Mormo. There's a neat little fragment about her from Aristides. Aristides speaks of Mormo, whose name frightens the children who hear it. They say that she was a Corinthian woman who, one evening, purposefully ate her own children and then flew away. Forever thereafter, whenever mothers want to scare their children, they invoke Mormo. So you can see there, she's engaging in cannibalism, one of those big taboos to the ancient Greeks and hopefully to all of you. And you can also see that, I don't know if lost is the right word. She didn't really lose her children, or she lost them very intentionally, but she no longer has children, and so she's therefore an incomplete woman in some sense. Unlike Gello, so Gello was actually a virgin who wanted to have children, loved children, but died before she ever had any. So supposedly after her death, she haunted and murdered children. Ghost logic, I guess. And then finally we have a quote about Lamia from Diodorus. At the base of this mountain was a large cave, thickly covered with ivy and bryony, in which, according to myth, had been born Lamia, a queen of surpassing beauty. But on account of the savagery of her heart, they say that the time that has elapsed since has transformed her face to a bestial aspect. For when all of the children that had been born to her had died, weighed down with her misfortune and envying the happiness of other women in their children, she ordered that newborn babies be snatched away from their mother's arms and straightway slain. Wherefore, among us, even down to the present generation, the story of this woman remains among the children, and her name is most terrifying to them. So not gonna lie, that stuff does sound pretty terrifying. That's pretty scary. So to wrap this up, let's talk about some ways that you can repel these boogeymen, or boogey-women rather. So there are a bunch of different spells or chants that you can use, but there's also items that you can either consume or hold as amulets. So for example, we have erusmin, which is a plant that you can consume to alleviate labor pains, but also to ward off demons who might bring you labor pains. There is also eyetite, I think is how you say that, but it's when a small rock gets stuck in a hollow of another rock, which seems pretty rare to me unless they're like actually making these, but they are used as amulets by pregnant women to ward off demons, and you can see why that association would be, because there's a little rock and a bigger rock. Then there's galactites, I guess, for use, as well as amulets made out of hyena eyes. That one is not my favorite. That sounds kind of gross, but to each their own. And then finally, donkey hides, which I guess the idea there is that so many demons are part donkey that you want to use donkey to ward off donkey demons. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Special thank you as always to subscribers and to Patreon members. I hope to see all of you again next week. Karate.